Welcome to Massive Passive Cash Flow, the podcast that guides professionals to financial prosperity. Join our community and let's start building your wealth. Here's your host, Gary Wilson.
Welcome back to the Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast. I'm Gary Wilson, your host, and I'm glad to have you back on the show. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate your reviews, and we love doing what we do. It's your reviews is what makes our world go around. So we got a great guest today, Brian Esposito. So first of all, Brian, thank you for doing this because I'm, reading all about you. I'm thinking, holy smokes, how did I get lucky to get this guy?
Well,
Thank you for spending your valuable time to share with us.
Well, the feelings are mutual, Gary. The work that you've done is incredible. So honored to be here talking with you today.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, if you wouldn't mind, I'm sure everybody's wondering, well, what are we going to talk about today? But if you could give him your background, I want everybody listening, really pay attention here. If you're driving, just listen. If you're sitting at home, listen and maybe take a few notes because this is going to be really interesting for you to hear this. And then we'll jump into some what and some how after that,
Yeah, sounds good. I'll sum up my 23 plus years as an entrepreneur career as quickly as I can for you and your listeners. So always an entrepreneur, even starting as a teenager, just finding opportunities, going out and earning, building companies, and repetitively doing that in over many different industries. So present day, I built a holding company, private holding company, wholly owned by me in one aspect of my life. Within that, there's over 110 companies. There's over 200 joint ventures around the world, and proudly operating in over 25 different industries. So how I like to look at it is an exceptional ecosystem and arsenal of IP, technology, products, solutions, and services. Great management put in place to lead and push these companies forward. And then those companies are supported by great legal, accounting, compliance, and regulatory. And then that's further supported by our private capital partners, strategic capital partners, and investment banking partners. My life's journey and career has led me to be heavily involved with a lot of forward-thinking technologies and new markets and new industries, of which I've been heavily involved in the idea of tokenization. There's a lot of confusion as to all these different terms. There's things like NFTs, there's crypto, there's tokens, there's digital assets, there's security tokens. I've always stayed in the line of regulation and how do you operate this new asset class inside of your business, or this new financial technology and blockchain and all these different buzzwords that everybody keeps hearing. So I've been all in on security tokens, which are much like stocks or regular securities. They go through the same rules and regulations to be listed and issued. However, they live in a blockchain environment. So it's a digital security that's regulated by entities like the SEC. With my work and history there, I became an authority in that space, someone that understands how to operate in that space and how to bring great opportunities to the market utilizing that type of offering to the world. And in August of 2023, I was honored to take over as CEO of a public company. Ticker is DLMI, 1954 based Salt Lake City based company known as Diamond Lake Minerals. And it's phenomenal history. It's maneuvered and survived all different types of industries that they tried to operate in. And in August, again, honored to take over as CEO. We repositioned the entire strategy of the company. So it is a first of its kind hybrid of a traditional stock and security parent company that has identified multiple different industries that it wishes to operate in, and building companies, acquiring companies, starting companies across all these different aspects and industries. And they will have a security token offering tied into their business model. So it's that hybrid approach of moving people into the digital realm of where securities are going. Thankfully, Mr. Fink over at BlackRock has been speaking daily about tokenizing everything. The whole world is moving towards tokenizations for its efficiency and for its ability to open up liquidity into new retail investors who never had chances to invest in things. So this is what we're working on. We've got great momentum and spotlight on our company. We've got incredible advisors and icons of their industry supporting me and supporting the company. And honored to be holding that role and building value for our shareholders.
Awesome. Well, where do you see, actually, two questions pretty much related. Would you mind explaining to people what tokenization is? Some of the listeners have heard it before. We've had other guests on that talked about that, but we always get new guests every week. Describe that, but also, where do you see the future of Diamond Lake Minerals? I mean, I've been to Utah before teaching, and then of course everybody goes there and gets to see the lake.
Hmm.
but I was teaching real estate the old-fashioned way, which is, how do you buy duplexes and triplexes and flip homes and things like that. And we're going to kind of head down that path in a little bit. But sorry to ramble. Uh, if you could describe tokenization, and then where do you see the future of Diamond Lake Minerals going? Or what the future is?
Yeah, I always try to describe these types of things as simple as possible, and how I've looked at it and how we as a company are looking at it. It's the ability to digitize fractional ownership in a ledger or a blockchain environment to allow for capital to come in through different means than
Mhm,
traditional means that we're all used to. Everybody around the world is walking around with a smartphone now, and because of that type of technology,
mhm,
they have the ability to turn that smartphone into a digital wallet. And by turning it into a digital wallet, you have now the chance to convert maybe your fiat currency. There's even credit card processing companies that help you utilize the means of a credit card to convert it into a token or to bring value into a digital wallet and then look for opportunities around the world to invest in. So when you're looking at the idea
mhm,
of a house, for example, or of a piece of commercial real estate, you have your traditional means of bringing capital in to acquire that building or that property, or to refinance it,
mhm,
or to acquire it and flip it. You can take a little debt, you can get a bank loan, you can go and get friends and family to maybe come in with you and put some money into it. You can crowd fund it. There's all different ways that we're used to be able to bring liquidity or capital into that transaction. Now, with the means of technology, things that, where we see the future of tokenization going, rather than going to a little bit of people for a lot of money to help bring in capital or recapitalize an asset, you can go to the globe, you can go to a
mhm,
global audience for a lot of people to put a little bit of money into it. So it changes the entire idea of where is
mhm,
liquidity coming from, where is capital coming from? Because when the markets dry up, and we've experienced those turbulent times, there was never a way to go to outside of those means to bring in capital. You had your LPs, you have a GP model. When you want to refinance your previous fund, so you can roll those people into a new fund. It's hard to do that when
mhm,
cost of capital is expensive, and it's hard to do that when people are nervous or concerned that maybe there's a bubble in the market and there's a correction coming. So it makes it very difficult. Even when times are great, it's difficult to bring in capital sometimes. But now, thanks to technology,
mhm,
thanks to enormous entities like BlackRock throwing tremendous credibility behind that this is the future. Also this week, JP Morgan and Citigroup put their announcements out that tokenization is the future. So what I love about it is the democratization of it, where people now can invest into something that they never had the blessing to invest in. A lot of great deals or IPOs or
mhm,
moments were only given to the 1%ers of the world, the good old boys network. And that's how you had that term, the
mhm,
rich get richer. But now, because
mhm.
capital is out there, and there's a lot of capital out there with the regular person walking around, now you can give them a chance to buy into something to really create enormous amounts of wealth for them and to feel a sense of pride of
Mhm.
ownership into something that they never had ownership in.
Yeah, I love it. I love the whole concept, and what's beautiful is I get to see it playing out in real time now in our world. If we were talking about real estate before the show started, and there was another company that sprung up also as a result of this, where people can invest in fractional shares of real estate. So it's not timeshare. Timeshare is a chunk of time. This is literally you own a piece of a property. You might own it with 50 other people, but the so many things are so beneficial about it. One of them is traditional real estate investing has not been available to everybody. In fact, most people, when you talk to them about real estate investing, are thinking, I don't have the time, I don't have the money, I can't get another loan, all these things that are just mental blocks. When the reality is that because of tokenization now, they can go to a website and look at a whole list of properties that they can buy one share for $10 in
It's
one
crazy.
property.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's just amazing.
And then
So
the other
I,
important aspect is the liquidity opportunity, where the secondary
mhm,
market becomes one of the most important next phases of tokenization. Is how do you get out of that investment if you wish to
right.
sell it? So the ability then to now create, like a stock system for these tokenizations where they
Hmm.
can be bought, sold, and traded in a secondary market, where maybe that $10 investment of that token of fractionalized ownership in building A, after a year, the building's much more profitable now. The cost of capital is a lot less because it went this tokenization model. The tenancy's back up to 90%. It's earning. That token maybe is worth $20. Maybe it's worth $100 in the open market. And in that time, maybe you also recoup some dividends or some yield appreciation from holding that token and getting a piece of the earnings or revenue share or profit share. So all these different
Hmm.
tokenization securities that go out into the market, they all have their different ppms. That's what's really important about the idea of not just crypto, because that's not where I play. Security tokens are regulated securities, so they have to have all the due diligence and the proper materials that get issued and approved by regulatory to go to
Hmm.
market. So even though there is a risk in everything, it's a lot more well, it's fully transparent because you know who's managing that. You have all the details about the token, of the people that are managing that company or that building or the property, other potential
Hmm.
investors that are involved. So you have a complete prospectus on it. So it's not just what you may see on
Right.
X or on LinkedIn or on Facebook or Instagram and all these
Yeah.
meme tokens out there, and people say they're making all this kinds of money. You have no idea who's behind them. You have no idea where that capital is going, what it's being used for. So, that's, to me, that's like playing Russian roulette. You never know what you're going to get involved with. And if you're, or like going to a casino, right? You're betting on something, maybe it hits, maybe it doesn't. But when you're looking at security tokens, there's a plan, there's a strategy, and there's
Yeah.
a real team behind that.
Did you know that you can participate in class every Monday? We call it Monday Night Live, 7 p.m. Eastern, with me and dozens of other investor agents from around the country, in fact, the world. Every Monday, totally free. No selling, no recruiting, just straight up education on anything and everything in real estate. And we have a lot of good guests coming on once or twice a month, bringing in expertise on subjects like how to buy a house with crypto. Okay. How about them apples? What about AI? How's AI affecting our business? How about the metaverse, blockchain processing? We're already using it in title work. So come on to Monday Night Live. Be ready to take notes and ask questions because it's live and engaging, and you get to participate by asking questions and meeting others. So we'll see you there. Go to GaryRealEstateWithGaryWilson.com. Click on the resource tab, drop down, and you'll see Monday Night Live. And in there, you can see one of the most recent classes. But more importantly, you can register for class as many as you want going up to like the end of the year, I believe. So in any case, do that. We'll see you on Monday Night Live. Look forward to meeting you in person. Take care. Yeah, it's much more intelligent. It's interesting is I love the direction you're taking with this because when the whole world of cryptocurrency and blockchain processing and all that first came out, it was like the Wild Wild West, and it still is in a lot of ways. What people need to understand is in and of itself, the technology and the great potential, the upside potential, tremendous upside potential is real. Are there risks? There are, but what's ironic is most of the risks are not within that world of the technology and the people running it. It's outside of it. It's the people who do not want to be regulated and legislated, and they're creating these like you said, they're almost like bandit companies all over the place. Hey, give me your money. There's this black box we're going to put it in. We're going to give you so much per week. And I've seen these things, and right away I'm thinking that's no,
No,
that's not the kind of thing you want to get in.
no, and I've known a lot of
Yeah,
people that have gotten hurt by and taken advantage of that, and thinking that they actually. I've even seen like fake statements that were made for people with the growth of their money, and a lot of
wow,
them are called trading platforms, right? But then if you ever go to try to
yeah,
take money out in those illegitimate ones, no, you can never get it back out, which is
yeah,
it's just awful. I'm not. I don't. I'm very sensitive to. I've been taken advantage every way I can think of as I've grown my career, so I'm very sensitive to that
yeah,
when it happens to hardworking people that really believed in something and really trusted something. And it's those
yeah.
things and the FTXs of the world that created this harder hurdle to get over as far as the future of
Mhm.
tokenization and the natural evolution of it. And you can, if you want to reference it to something, it's I don't know, from what is it, late 1800s when the East Indian Tea Company went to, maybe even longer, the first stock that traded hands. It was buying investments into companies, you got a piece of paper, you got a bearer bond, it's tangible, you can touch it. Then it evolved into being able to have a brokerage house where you can be able to call a broker or have your money in a brokerage account where you can buy and sell and trade commodities, stocks, and bonds. And then in the early 2000s, it went a little bit digital where you can go in online and start to trade stocks. But people didn't adopt to that right overnight. That took a long time to build trust
Right.
that you can go online and you would feel safe about going onto your online banking / brokerage account and start trading. People like to at that time, they liked to call their broker. That was a relationship, that was a bond, or you go out on the golf course. So now it's people do it. They go on the app. They don't even think twice about it. They just go in, they trade, and they day trade, and there's careers built on it. So that's how I kind of reference this movement into the tokenization or the security tokenization of real world assets. It will become mainstream, and it will start to become part of your life. And it'll really hit the masses in scale when you go on your Charles Schwab account, you go on your Morgan Stanley account, and you see security token offerings, and you can just click and buy it within your normal brokerage account. That's one of our main strategies as to understanding the wealth of the world doesn't really get this. They're intimidated by it. Therefore, there's a lot of friction points. But if there's a stock in their portfolio like DLMI that is building, his plans are to build businesses and grow companies and really build value for our shareholders. And within our business model, we have this tokenization digital asset component. Then you can be in the industry. You can have some of your portfolio allocated to it. And then as the comfort continues to grow and exchanges that you trust are offering these things, you'll just buy it because you've been exposed to it in a much more gradual fashion.
Yeah. Well, I agree. And I love back to the direction that it's going this way, because there's a lot of people in society now who still don't understand it and don't trust it. But the more it becomes part of mainstream, you know, in the financial industry speaking, mainstream processing and regulation, there's going to be an inherent trust factor there. You've got the backing, you've got some security, and it's really the right way to do things. That's why we have those entities in place now. That's why the SEC exists, because 100, 200 years ago, it was the same thing. It was just a different level of technology. There, but people were taking tremendous risk, and so we want to not inhibit people's ability to invest in new things and new technologies. We want to allow them to do that, but in a way that's they have some sense of security and safety and trust where they didn't before. So I see that happening. I'm all for it, and I think there'll be people like my dad who are, well, he's an intelligent person. He studies, and I think he'll see this and get it. And then, by the way, I've got a friend of mine right now who's getting ready to sell his business after been owning it and running it for 30 years. It's a big, big, big business now, and he's doing it the traditional way, but it's taking years. It's been going on for a couple of years, and if he could tokenize it, he'd probably have it all done now, and everybody be happy, and that would work perfectly well. So let's go back to like real estate. We touched on tokenization, and we mentioned blockchain. Um, where do you see the tokenization role into financial services? And then kind of a follow-up question, specifically with real estate, perhaps we can touch on that. We've kind of mentioned it with the way you can buy fractional shares, but also blockchain processing, why that's important in real estate too. And really, blockchain processing, honestly, it's not just real estate, but any financial transaction. I mean, I used to be in banking, and I can see the banking industry. In fact, I know of banks who already are utilizing blockchain processing because it's safe, it makes sense. And I know this is a whole world of discussion, Brian. Probably we could be here for 3 weeks. Would you mind kind of getting people a little bit of an intro on that so that they can become more comfortable and start to look for more information on their own too,
Yeah, again, I try to keep it as simple as possible. So the evolution of a transactional exchange and a digital footprint of full transparency as to the exchange and ownership of an asset or conversion of an asset from cash to fractional ownership in a piece of real estate, for example. all of that being able to be done in milliseconds on a blockchain ledger. So you can even think of it like an Excel file, but living in a public, sometimes private environment where you can fully see the transfer of ownership, all the transactions from where it began to where it is present day and where it's going to go possibly tomorrow. So having the full viewpoint of ownership of that, and a lot of the deals that I've been involved with in my career where I saw an immediate benefit, and a lot of people that are either exposed to deals or review deals or have to do due diligence on deals, there was a lot of times where people were selling me something that they didn't even actually own, which was bananas, but that's a reality.
Mhm.
So when you have a blockchain ledger
Yeah.
environment where it's immutable, where this person or this wallet owns that asset for X amount of dollars and X amount of percentage of ownership and wants to transfer that into a new buyer, or from a primary offering from the source to the next level of investors, or the secondary market where they want to then have liquidity and exit out of that ownership, and removing all of the
Mhm.
time and processing cost in that transaction, and to be able to go
Mhm.
from ownership,
Mhm.
transfer of ownership for a fraction of the cost in milliseconds and a high speed ledger technology blockchain, you've just really moved the needle as far as, wow, that was easy. I now own it. It's immutable in my wallet. I own
Mhm.
X amount of percentage of that piece of property or that asset, that real world asset. And this applies to everything, like Mr. Fink's saying at Blackstone, like I've been saying for a long time, and like DLMI's been saying since I took over the company. Real world assets across the board can be tokenized. Real estate, precious metals, silver, gold,
Mhm.
oil and gas, cars, any type of asset out in the world that has
Mhm.
a book value has the ability to fractionalize ownership in that. And that's what we're excited to play in as a new channel or a new piece of a business model. You still got to do the
Mhm.
traditional work and
Mhm.
efforts and growing these companies and building value and creating opportunities. But now you have another tool, another piece of technology where you can transact and confirm transactions.
Mhm.
So that's where we're really excited about. And the commercial real estate side, I know you operate a lot in the residential side and the
Mhm.
mixed use side, but the commercial real estate market has a little over 7 trillion
Mhm.
maturing over the next 2 to 3 years in the US market alone. And people that may remember, well, that
Mhm.
was a big issue in '07. What's going to happen with this
Mhm.
amount of paper maturing? And traditional
Mhm.
access to capital can't support that. And bank systems can't support that. And access to
Mhm.
refinancing that paper is not there. You're going to look to things like tokenization, where a few billion people around the world have access to buy into something like this and can help bring liquidity to what could potentially be a major crisis. Because commercial real estate is the complete foundation of a town or a city. It brings employment, brings mom and
Mhm.
pop shops, it brings F&B, it brings sporting events, it brings everything. Look around. When there's for rent signs and there's buildings that have half vacancy, the town starts to slowly become a little stagnant and starts to kind
Mhm.
of crumble. And when that town starts to do that, that means other towns start to do that, and that means cities start to do that.
Mhm.
And that's when banks say, well, we don't want that paper. We can't absorb that. We can't refinance that. And then you start to find yourself in a situation where, as humanity, we've been in before, which drives me crazy. I'm 42, I'll be 43. I've experienced a few
Mhm.
corrections. The fact that there's so much amnesia around that, and that we keep repeating these same things over and over again, it baffles the hell out of me. So I'm really hoping,
Mhm.
and where we're focused on, we have great team, we've got great access, we've brought in great IP, and we've got an ecosystem with licenses, and we know regulatory. We want to provide a tool and a solution for real world assets like commercial real estate, where we can bring in a new low cost access to capital that's never been tapped into before. So that's where we see it going, and that's where we're supporting.
Mhm.
In addition to, like I said, building businesses and building value like we traditionally do anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. What I love the direction. I love the whole opportunity. And I can see where, you know, tokenization, allowing for fractional ownership, really can be applied to almost any industry, any like you said, any asset that holds value. Not just cryptocurrency. I mean, Bitcoin is the big obvious cryptocurrency example. It was the first one, and it's like everything follows that. As Bitcoin goes, so goes the rest of the other
Mhm.
coins. But in the conventional world, I mean, think about it. People who own, a family restaurant they've owned for 3 generations, and this is an example because I know somebody going through this. They're just tired.
Mm.
They're tired. If you're in a restaurant, you can't. It's hard to take a vacation. It's one of the hardest businesses to get
Can't do it.
into. It's
Yeah.
just
It's very
extremely tough.
taxing. Very, and
But
then sometimes the kids don't want to get into it, and then all of a sudden that legacy ends from generational because
that's exactly where they are.
yeah,
Yeah, the kids went to college. They're accountants now. They're like, "No, I don't want that restaurant." So if that can be sold through tokenization, correctly, legitimately, I mean, these folks could realize the benefit and the reward of what they did and their parents and their grandparents did,
yeah,
and yet the restaurant's still there. The community wins. They still got a great restaurant to go to, and all these people now get a small, tiny fraction of profit every month for this great restaurant still being up and running.
yeah,
Um, so that's just an example. And the reason I'm saying this, Brian, is I want people, listeners, to really think about this and what this means and how it can be applied. And you gave the example of the commercial sector with all these notes. For those of you who don't know, commercial mortgages typically have a 5-year reset where the interest rate is reset based on an index. Well, there's a giant chunk of that coming due. That's what Brian was saying, $7 trillion worth. That's a lot. I don't care how big your economy is. I mean, the national debt in the U.S. right now is north of 30 trillion. We're talking about a one fourth or one fifth to one fourth of that in amounts. I mean, and you add on top of that what happened in the coronavirus years when a lot of people learned they could work from home. Well, so did the business owners. They
yeah,
learned, hey, I can have these guys work from home. I don't have to pay for office space. So there's a lot of repurposing that's going on, and it will have to go on. To me, it spells opportunity. That's what it spells. And I see tokenization as one at least one answer to that, what some people see as a potential conundrum. But just like the last recession, right? I'm sure you saw it was painful for a lot of people, but the properties never went away.
mm-mm.
They just changed hands. They went from the left hand to the right hand. And for everyone listening, you just have to decide what part of that deal do you want to be in? Do you want to be on the selling side, the buying side, or on the transaction side? I say be on the transaction side,
Yeah,
you know?
and then
So,
identify
by the way,
some sweet opportunities that are like diamond in the rough where you want to bring that asset into your portfolio. So you can do both. You just got to
oh
be
yeah,
really specialized which properties are really maybe distressed that have a lot of value and a lot of upside and which ones that you know will turn around.
yeah. Hey, if Brian, if you don't mind asking, we got probably a few minutes left here. Is there anything you wanted to dig into that we haven't talked about? And if not, or even if you have, if when it comes to real estate, where do you see everything going, not just commercial, but in terms of home ownership versus rentership
Yeah.
and regulation, legislation from the government bodies and banking when it comes to that? If you have any, and we're not, this isn't a test. I tell people all the time, hey, don't worry, we're not going to hold you to it. We
Yeah.
just want to know what your opinion is because we value your opinion. And
Yeah, of
we always get the
course.
same smile, and I get the same thing too.
Well,
So,
I'm not a speculator, so I'm not going to throw my ideas. I always give my thoughts as per my experiences because I'm out in the world. I'm not leading
yes.
from an ivory tower. I'm out in markets around the world. I meet and speak with people. I am very observant. And the last few years, you're seeing for rent signs in major cities and really popular towns that should never have a for rent sign, and you're seeing home
Mhm.
prices that are astronomical, and you're seeing a lot of homeowners say, I'd be great to sell this and bring this money in, but where the hell do I go? I'd have to downsize. I'd have to go
Mhm.
to a place I don't want to be in. So it's I mean, I say this can't stay like this. Like, the stock market can't stay at this level. The housing
Right.
prices in certain markets can't stay. Just that's just me being, I think realistic. And when I talk with people and they say, "Oh no, we're
Yeah.
going to keep going up and up and up," I'm like, "Yeah, but you're older than me, and wasn't there a lot of corrections that you didn't you experience a couple more corrections than I did? How do you?" Like,
Yeah.
it's interesting to see. I guess people kind of like maybe like a war, they just block it out and they don't want to remember those hard times. They just want to keep focusing on the good. And I get the psychology of that, but I also live in the real world, and I also live like I have to protect my work, my resources and assets, and I really have to protect our public company. So what's going on?
Mhm.
Where are the opportunities? I know there's always an opportunity and a correction, and I don't like taking advantage of people that have fallen on hard times. But if you see an asset that you can
Mhm.
grab that brings value to you, your family, or your company, you have the means to get it, or you have some dry powder, try to get it at the low and try to create real opportunity. And when you have those moments or those wins, do something with a percentage of that money and help people. Donate, go to your local food bank, try to give back for the wins. That's kind of the good karma you can do for
Mhm.
picking up somebody's fallen times. But for me, there's
Mhm.
definitely a correction brewing. It just has to be. And where do we want to be to help bring liquidity to the correction, where maybe somebody can stay in their house? Maybe that restaurant owner can find a new way to bring in some capital. And I've been in the F&B industry for a long time. It's great. I love the hospitality industry, but it is 24/7. I wish more of the
Mhm.
family mom and pop ones would bring in some help. They have a stigma where they want to do everything. But if you can, you could pick up a
Mhm.
Chili's manager that went through rigorous training, or an Applebee's manager, an Olive Garden manager, to come in and manage your company and know profitability and know food waste and really help enhance the business. So if there's no way to pass it down from kid anymore because they don't want to take it, there is the ability now, thanks to tokenization, to get some ownership into that business. And odds are, it's your local community that's going to want to put money into it. I mean,
Mhm.
you can look at the mechanics from like a GoFundMe. Local communities get behind
Yeah.
GoFundMe campaigns because they want to support one another. So that restaurant's a great
Yeah.
example where do some fractional ownership, go and hire somebody to manage it and run it, and give yourself a good life work balance. As a restaurateur, you need it because it's a 24/7 gig, and bring in somebody smarter than you
Mhm.
that could manage it correctly, and just you have
Yeah.
fun. Go out and meet the people in your restaurant, work the tables, work the front of the house. Don't just be a
Yeah.
slave behind the stove and think that you're trapped. There are ways to get out of that in today's environment.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And I appreciate you sharing that. And I also appreciate your thoughts on, the economy. And I agree. I think just based on my experience, and I was in banking for a while, which probably handicaps me as much as it helps me. It's when you're in banking, you see the world through the opposite lens of the
Yeah,
consumer.
very
But
risk
the
adverse.
reality is, absolutely, yeah. And I really am. I'm a very conservative person, but I also have that entrepreneurial gene where I like to build and create. But when it comes to the economy and real estate, I lived in Canada for a while, and I got to see where I believe the US was going about 5 years in advance. I mean, if you go try to live in Ontario right now
Yeah.
and you think it's expensive in the United States, you should see what it's like up there.
Oh
And
yeah.
it keeps going like there's no end. And that philosophy, what you mentioned, the philosophy, like some people say, well, no, we're just going to keep going. You know, you're it's going to there's going to be a bubble. It's a mathematical certainty. Nobody can tell you when. If
Yeah.
we did, we would have predicted the last one at the right time. There were people calling for the last recession 5 and 7, even more years in advance of it actually happening. There's so many factors and variables, and
Yeah.
the consumer not being really fully aware of what's going on is one of those variables. It's one of those factors.
Oh,
So up
and
in Canada, and I love.
I was just gonna say
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
a unique fact. No, I interrupted you. A unique factor right now is an election year, so there's all kinds
Yeah,
of
yeah.
maneuvering to make sure that things look good for whatever the powers that be want to accomplish.
Absolutely. And both parties do it. It doesn't matter what party it
Mhm.
is, whatever party is in control, the administration interest rates, for example, the latest inflation report came out and it wasn't what they wanted. So at the same time, we were told in January we're going to have 6 rate decreases this year.
Yeah.
Now I knew from my banking experiences that that's not probably not going to happen. That's
Yeah.
foolish to say we might have two. Well, now with those inflation reports, I don't know if we even will have two. We haven't had one yet. But that's another example of how things can be falsely propagated
Manipulated.
and move forward.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but up in Canada, beautiful people, wonderful. I love it up there. But man, it's so expensive anymore. And they just keep going. Gas prices, food prices, housing prices. When does it end? And how do people get started? I mean, it doesn't make sense. And when something doesn't make sense, eventually the consumer is going to catch on. They're going to say, you know what? I just can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go for the weekend retreat because the gas a tank is now
Yeah.
$100 versus 50 4 years ago. So just look for that, guys. Be aware. I'm not saying hunker down right now. What I'm saying is it's not time to panic. It's time to prepare. So make sure your house is in order. Make sure you're not stretched out to the limit. Um, you know, maybe you don't need that sixth pair of snow skis. You just deal with the five you've already got. That kind of thing.
Yeah.
But still go out support your local community. I mean, it's good to go out and eat. It's fun for the family. It's healthy. You get to meet people. So still do those things. Um, but maybe cut your own grass. That kind of thing. But when it comes to investing, on the positive side of things, on the growth side of things, I want you to be aware that um, people like Brian are making these things happen. Tokenization, being able to buy fractional shares of different kinds of assets. It's already happening in real estate. Now it's happening in other sectors, other industries. So, Brian, how can people, I guess we'll wrap it up with this one. Um, what can people do? I mean, is there a way that they can learn from you, a website, something that you published, a mastermind? How can people learn more from you?
Yeah, well, I appreciate the time, Gary. Thank you so much. And for your listeners, I'm always accessible. So please reach out to me with any questions. Brian J. Esposito on LinkedIn, X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. My corporate website's eie.rocks. That's eie.rocks. And then the public entity DLMI is diamondlakeminerals.com. Got a tremendous amount of information there. We're very up to date with everything that we're working on and our announcements. I do honored to do a lot of discussions like this and be asked to speak at places. And right now it's talking about it, educating people, getting something to just click. Sometimes it's a simple sentence or a simple analogy where, okay, I get it. This used to be this and now it's this. So you just got to look for things that are familiar to you that you can attribute to this being the same mechanisms, the same way to create wealth and to boost your own personal balance sheet, but it's in a new form. It's a new medium. It's a digital asset of fractional ownership. There's nothing different with the mechanics when you're doing it in a regulatory environment. That's why I love security tokens. So it's looking online. INX is one of our partners. I love them. They're phenomenal security token exchange. You can look INX, the INX way. Great free digital handbook they wrote while they were rolling these things out with the SEC. So it gives you really good understanding as to what security tokens are. And thankfully, now more than ever, there's a lot of credibility and support because of the likes of BlackRock and out there promoting tokenize everything. And that's true. You can do it. And that's where we're going. So it's going to be in your life. It's here to stay. What's exciting is how it's going to be in your life without you knowing about it, right? You'll be able to do a transaction on your phone. A digital wallet will be created that you didn't even know you created one, and it's a lot less friction points. That's where it needs to go. And we're excited to be a company and experience management that are leading the way to help people understand this and build and grow in their value.
Yeah, I love it. Hey, I wanted to recap some of this. So, one of the sites is it EIE.rocks? Is that
Yep,
right?
that's my parent private holding company with all the companies that I'm involved with. Stands for Esposito Intellectual Enterprises. That's the EIE.rocks. And then the public company, DLMI, is diamondlakeminerals.com. And that's the Salt Lake City headquartered company since 1954. And the INX Way, you can Google the INX Way digital handbook or the INX Way security tokens, and there'll be a link to download a free digital copy of their ebook that really helps explain tokenization and the future of it and how those mechanics work.
Okay. Well, this has been really awesome. I know we went a little bit long, but for everyone listening, I hope you were really paying attention. You can always replay this. So if you were driving, remember this will be loaded to our website page. It's also on 30 different channels. And if you could be so kind as to leave a review, because your reviews are our currency in the podcast world. We don't really directly make money from this. It's a community service. We love to do it because I get to meet people like Brian. You get to meet people like Brian, and it's an awesome, completely upside format that's all for you. So we love your reviews. If you could do that, that'd be awesome. And for everyone, we'll see you on the next podcast. Thank you again, Brian, for joining us, and God bless all of you and your families. We'll see you on the next Massive Passive Cash Flow podcast.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Massive Passive Cash Flow. Be sure to go to realestatewithgarywilson.com to join our community and start building wealth today.